It being 7:01, I'd like to begin, I'd like to open the Carver Select Board's meeting of February 2nd. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would someone like to lead us in the community prayer?
I'll read it.
Thank you.
Almighty God, humbly we pray your blessing as we concern our life with the opportunity to serve our community. Enhance us with your spirit of dignity and selflessness. May we become instruments of support and understanding as we seek to bring an environment of trust and purpose among all who provide the many services that make us all we can become. Help us achieve the goals of our commitment in this office that is now our responsibility. And especially, we lift our prayers for all the citizens of our community that we have been allowed to serve, that they may discover the fullness and joy of life that we all seek. And keep those serving in our armed forces and our first responders in our hearts and thoughts. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. This meeting is being recorded by Area 58 Community Access Media, Channel 15, and will be posted by Area 58 on YouTube as soon as possible. There are openings on several committees. Please refer to the Select Board page on our website for a listing and application. At this time, it's time for citizens' participation. Are there citizens here who would like to participate? Seeing none, thank you. Our next appointment is an appointment with Mike Paddock to appoint him to the Agricultural Commission. Is Mr. Paddock here? Mr. Paddock, would you care to join us? Thank you.
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
Do you want to ask a question? Do you want me to say why I would like to be on the Agricultural Commission?
Well, we know that you've been on the Agricultural Commission for quite some time, so I'm assuming this is reappointment?
Reappointment, yes. So I've enjoyed being on the Ag Commission. I have been growing things in this town for just about all of my 60 years here, and I look forward to sharing the experience that I've gained over those years, as well as being part of things like the Cape Cod Cranberry Growers Association, and I do outreach with them. I'm a board member for the Mass Flower Growers Association. And one of the things that I care most about is helping neighbors work out their issues and their problems. And sometimes when we're farming or raising horses and we're doing things, neighbors need to understand each other better. And I think the Ag Commission gives us a great place to do that and to work those things out, as well as work things out with people who just don't know what farming is. And when things come before the board or town meeting, there needs to be a voice that says, here's what we're about, here's what we're doing, and here's what you need to understand. And I think I can help in all those capacities. I've done it in the past, and I would enjoy to continue to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Paddock. I know you do a terrific job of that, you and the Ag Commission. Do any board members have any questions?
I make a motion that we reappoint Mr. Paddock to the Agricultural Commission.
Motion, is there a second? Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Mr. Belbin.
Mr. Paddock, thank you very much for coming for this position. What other positions within the town have you already served in? Just
I am the chairman of the Board of Assessors, and I think that might be my only other official capacity, except for the Ag Commission. Those two. Unless somebody can think of one that I've forgotten.
No. I was just wondering. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Any further discussion? There's a motion and a second in favor of appointing Mr. Paddock to the Agricultural Commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Paddock, for your
Thank you,
service.
ladies and gentlemen of the board.
Thank you.
Point of order.
Yes,
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I'm sorry.
So, I mean, between the mask and these wonderful things and whatnot, can I make a suggestion that we have Zoom meetings after this? because it is difficult here to hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'll take that under consideration, Mr. Belbin. Chapter 61A, Notice of Intent, Roberta J. Perry, trustee, map 92, lot 14-1. Is there a representative here? And Ian, I apologize, I forget your last name.
Ward.
Of course. Thank you. And I just, before you started, like the Area 58, to know that there is a visual, if we can get okay, good. Thanks so much. Just introduce yourself and tell us about this project, please.
So Ian Ward, I'm representing the Perry Family Realty Trust. Tim Perry is also here, right outside the room. And this is a project that's part of a larger project, as you can see on the board. This is on Rochester Road. There's Ryder Shores to the north, White Quanio to the south. This is right in the middle. This is part of a project that was approved by the planning board some time back. The other properties have already received a declination from this board, and due to estate planning reasons, this one was delayed, and so now seeking declination from the board. This is the property. This is the specific property. This is in your packet as well. It is 40,000, approximately 40,000 square feet, 40,734 to be exact. The assessors have already given an amount for rollback tax, and be happy to answer any questions.
So Mr. Ward pointed out to me before the meeting started that in the packet it says it's 4,000 and change square feet, but it's really 40,000 and change square feet, just so everyone knows. Does anyone have any questions or motion?
I do.
Mrs. Boga?
In the letter given, it says the portion of the purchase price allocable to the converted land is approximately $10,167. But then I think in the purchase and sale, it said something about $150,000. Can you explain, what does that $10,000 figure represent?
Mr. Ward, if you could use the microphone, I appreciate it. Pull it real close.
How's that?
That's
Good.
much better, thank you.
The total, the price for the whole property was the 150. The portion of the property that is coming out of 61A is the 40,000 square feet.
Okay,
The rest of the property is staying in 61A.
okay. So then, if the town were to want to purchase this property, we're looking at about $10,000. Is that the fair market assessed value based on that figure?
Based on what the assessors came up with,
Okay,
that's correct.
okay. I think that's pretty good.
Jen, what reason would we have to purchase this property?
Sorry, what'd you say?
What reason would we have to purchase this property?
Well, we haven't visited yet and done a site visit.
It's not something that's designated on the open space and recreation plan. I know that for sure.
Well, it might be something that is worth exploring.
If I may?
Yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Ward.
So what we're talking about is the footprint of the array itself. There's not really access or anything else. It is the footprint of the posts.
Okay.
And what is currently on the land in question?
It's a cranberry bog.
It's a cranberry bog.
So, but for the current state requirement to do the first right of refusal to the town, there is, this would stay in 61A. This is an active cranberry bog. It's going to continue to be farmed,
Right.
and the panels are simply helping the operation stay in existence.
Okay. That's what I wanted to know, because I'm not sure the town would be interested in buying a cranberry bog right now. It's just, and it's unfortunate that they have to take it out of 61A, but I know that's being worked on the state legislature. Yeah. Mr. Belbin?
Is there an easement to that property to utilize for getting back there from a main road?
There is go ahead, Joe.
I'm sorry, sir, you'll have to use a microphone because no one at home can hear you. Thanks very much. Just introduce yourself and,
I'm Jim Perry. I'm representing the trust.
could you say that again into the mic?
I'm Jim Perry, and I'm representing the trust.
Thank you.
There's a tar road that comes in. You've been to the site when they did the walkabout earlier with the Conservation Commission.
I'm not on the conservation.
Okay,
It was the
well,
planning board,
On
probably.
the planning board, probably. You guys all came, walked around the site while I was there. But anyways, there's a tar road that comes in off of Rochester Road that is part of the property that's being sold to the solar company, and they'll be able to drive right in there and get out to it, no problem. Does that make sense to you? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Mr. Belbin?
Follow up with what you had said, that, so the whole property, because I haven't been out there to do a site visit, but, so this is all going to be cranberry bogs with solar on top? There's no uplands or anything that's being moved around and for it?
Correct. It's straight cranberry bog. The panels are going over the cranberry bog.
Okay. And how tall will those be off the ground?
10 feet
10 feet?
at horizontal.
Okay. Was that on a horizontal, not an angle?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any retention ponds on this lot too?
There's a shared retention pond, yes.
Okay, for all of the bog areas?
It's, yes, for both the Perry property
Mhm.
and then Wayneo next
Okay.
door. This is what,
There's a pond here. That's a tailwater recovery pond. That's shared by this bog and this bog.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Is there a motion?
I make a motion that the town declined its option to purchase this property under 61A.
That the town decline? Thank you.
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion passes 3-2. Thank you, Mr. Ward.
thank you.
Next topic is discussion and possible vote on appointments to permitting authority boards and commissions. And this is for a possible vote and submission as a town meeting warrant article. You have in your packet 3 sets of emails I think Elaine printed off. I also gave you another set that I wrote to all the chairs of the various permitting authority boards and commissions, and I did get back some answers. The one I just handed out tonight is a little more updated because I had revised the proposed bylaw. Basically, the proposed bylaw tries to make it clear that 2 or more positions on permitting authority boards and commissions cannot be appointed by the same appointing authority. So, thus, for example, someone appointed to the Conservation Commission can also serve on the Historic District Commission, since Conservation is appointed by the Select Board and HDC is appointed by the Town Administrator. It was just one of my examples. However, someone cannot serve on both the ZBA, which is TA appointed, and the Earth Removal Committee, which is also TA appointed. This would help to remove the perception of one single appointing authority, quote-unquote, stacking boards and commissions. This is not reflective of any person currently serving on any of these boards. Rather, it's an effort to prevent any of that perception in the future that may have taken place in the past. So that's what that's about. The other... Okay, let me just read my other point here. The addition of the prohibition of select board and planning board members being appointed by either permitting authority to another permitting board or commission hopefully helps to address any perceived non-financial conflicts. And then I wrote, in my opinion, elected Board of Health members do not seem to be in the same permitting position as select board and planning board members, since the Board of Health permits are fairly strictly outlined in state law. And then, it occurred to me that actually the Board of Health members also can issue variances. So that they have more discretion than it originally occurred to me that they might have. So, I mean, if you decide to take this new version and put it on the warrant, we might want to just say that elected officials just can't be on these appointing authorities, these permitting authorities. And the last point that I have is just, as I think I mentioned earlier, the proposed bylaw also does not prohibit someone from serving on a permitting authority, board, or commission, and also serving on another town committee that is not a permitting authority. So you could serve on the rec committee and, say, the community preservation committee, because neither one of those are permitting authorities. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear from all of you. Who wants to start us off?
I'll start.
Mr. Belbin.
All right, so I think we are still missing a board here, the ZBA. A ZBA member should not serve on any other board, commission, or committee, whether it's appointed by the selectman or the town administrator.
Oh, I see what you mean. Mhm.
So I think if you're on the ZBA, that's all you should be on, period, cut and dry, and nothing else.
And why is that? Just explain for the public.
Well, because you maybe go before the ZBA on one issue, and then you have to go to Conservation on another, and if you have a person on the ZBA and the Conservation Commission, then you got an issue with that. All right, and some people can't determine if they want to recuse themselves or not.
Better example would be planning board, and, because I don't think ZBA gives Conservation gives its
Yeah,
own
they do.
variances, so, but I see your point. If you're on the planning board and you deny something, then you can go to the ZBA and get a variance.
Well, you
So-
can get a special permit or a variance, either or.
Right, so I think, yeah, okay.
And how do we handle elected positions? Because same with like the redevelopment authority, you can be elected to the redevelopment authority and then be elected to the planning board, and the planning board's going to be overseeing a urban renewal plan for future, and how do we handle that? Can you, in all actualities, run for 2 elected offices?
So I'm going to, if I may, Mr. LaFawn, let you help us out with that one, because I think the redevelopment authority is a completely different entity from the local town boards and commissions. If you could,
Yeah, well, yeah,
please go ahead.
redevelopment authorities are under the same statute as housing authorities.
Can you pull your mic a little closer?
Yes.
Thanks.
I said redevelopment authorities are under the same statute as housing authorities. So as housing authorities, they're not, although their membership is elected by the town, the housing authority is not a town, it's not a town department, it's not a town board. It's essentially a quasi-state organization, and redevelopment authorities are under that exact same statute. So effectively, in the same role as being a kind of separate from the town, yet affiliated with the town, which I guess part of that is because there's authority vested in them, like the ability to purchase, sell, take land by eminent domain, it's more advantageous for it not to be the town itself as an entity. So there's reasons for it being somewhat separate from the town.
But this is also, but it's also the fact that you don't want somebody in, whether it's a quasi or a town position here, to serve on the same type of a board that they may be asking for a variance or whatnot, even though they recuse themselves. I mean, it kind of looks like it's done before they even walk through the door, if they go before it, because, I mean, in all actualities, you could have, like I said, all the membership knows the member on the ZBA, and why are they going to say no to it? I mean, so I mean, you want to cut down as much conflict as possible. So if you can't serve in that position or that capability to be appointed to another board or commission, then you really shouldn't. So I think that should also be discussed at some point. Like I said, I don't know the legalities of denying someone the ability to run for elected office in 2 different ones, but people have to understand that if you run for 2 elected offices that you're already in or going to want to be in, there may be a conflict between them at some way, shape, or form. It could be in a perceived conflict or an actual conflict within what you're doing. So, just my thoughts on it. I put it out there.
Thank you, Mr. Bellman. Any further thoughts from anyone?
Me?
Oh, Mrs. Bogart.
2 points.
Mhm.
Can I take this down?
Sure.
First thought was, this is basically what we've kind of been talking about, except this is the first time I'm seeing mention of who appoints who. I don't think we've ever talked about if it matters who appoints who. So I kind of don't like that part because,
That was my favorite part.
yeah, well, I feel like,
Because that was, I think, the more I thought about this bylaw, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
no.
the more I thought about it, the more I thought, okay, that's what I think has bothered us in the past. One person or this board kind of, with the appearance of stacking lots of boards. And so I thought, okay, what if we had it so that if they can't serve on 2 boards if the same person's doing the appointing? And that really cuts down that appearance of stacking. I think it does, but.
No, it totally does. I mean, getting that specific does, but then it adds people back into the option of getting on 2 permitting boards. So I think that definitely the stacking idea that's major.
Well, I don't want to keep people from being on permitting boards.
No,
So-
but I don't,
so
our
that's-
discussions.
That's
have
my
been-
other point. I think that, a lot of the responses that I got said things, and I think a lot of other people have told me too, who aren't on these boards, just said, well, if you do that, I'm afraid it's going to keep people, you won't fill your boards and commissions, because, not enough people are stepping up to volunteer. So I didn't want to keep people from being on these boards. I just wanted to prevent that appearance of things being a little, in one person or one board's favor.
Yeah.
That's
No,
all.
I get that. That's just new to conversation. Our past conversations, I thought we were on board that you're on one permitting board. So
I see what you're saying.
to take it to appointing authority kind of takes it down a notch where now you can be on 2 different permitting authorities. So I'd like to see it without that part, which still makes the intention. You can't be on 2 boards no matter who appoints you, so you definitely can't be stacked. And you only are on permitting authorities for 1. So that goes back to what I thought we had a consensus on. So I would like to see it go back to that and take that layer out of it.
Okay.
Because I don't think it needs to go deeper. My second point, I have forgotten, so if you want to move on to someone else, it'll come back to me.
Okay, we'll come back.
Thank you.
Mr. Hoffman,
I think there's really 2 issues.
you can
there.
take your mask off if you want. It's up to you.
I think there's really two issues, if I'm reading correctly. Originally, we talked about someone not serving on 2 permitting authorities, permitting boards. And then Sarah, what you just brought up was being appointed by the same permitting authority to 2 different.
Appointing authority.
Appointing,
Yeah,
sorry.
that's all right.
So there's kind of 2 different issues, like what are we looking to get out of this bylaw? Because we're almost going in 2 different directions now. So what's the key that we all want to agree on?
Right.
Because like Jen, I like that idea, but then when you just brought up, I'm like, that's a great idea, because now you do eliminate it, because again, it's perception, like Bob had said. You don't want to have the idea out there that the select board or the TA is appointing the same person to several different boards.
Exactly.
And that's what we want to
Right.
eliminate.
Yeah, well, you're right. So it depends on what our goal is here.
Exactly.
And I guess
We have
to me, right, but I think the original way it was framed seemed like it was more likely to limit the number of people applying to these things, or people being able to serve on 2 things. What if they have a background in 2 different things, and should we prevent them from doing that? Well, then I thought if we have the 2 different appointing authorities, making it separate that way, to me, that was one of the main goals, not so much that, one person was on 2 boards. But this may not be what you guys want, so we may have to go back to the original. Yeah.
I got my second point, but you can go to him first if you want to. Okay. I like how you said it, Jim, with the 2 points. That that kind of takes what I was saying further, limiting the permitting authorities you can be on to one. But then with the stacking of the boards, the way you said it really triggered something. Someone could still probably be on like 5 or 6 boards if they're not permitting boards.
Right, exactly.
But appointed by the same person.
Okay.
Because the TA appoints a bunch of boards.
Oh, yes, but that's
So-
why it says, that's why it has, if that other position is in other words, if that position is appointed by the same appointing authority, then they can't be on that.
Even if it's not a permitting board, there's a lot
No,
of
I'm
boards-
only talking about permitting board.
Right, so there's a lot of boards and committees in town that don't permit.
Correct.
But that a TA could put the same person on and on and on. So there could still be that kind of stacking committees thing.
Yeah, but it's
which-
not permitting authorities, and that to me is key.
Well, so there's
Right.
the stack thing, kind of like you said, what are we intending? I think there could be a bylaw on stacking boards that addresses who's appointing the board, but then our original intent was only being on one permitting board. So I could see that going 2 ways. I like the way you said it. So I think this was our original intention, which is one permitting authority, and then we could explore another one with the stacking, which I think is a really smart point too. So I could see them being successful separately. And then I thought of my second thing. If we go through with this, we've got to make sure that we make it clear that if this were to be approved as a bylaw at town meeting, how it addresses people in that situation at that time. We'll have to have some
Absolutely.
sort of phrasing.
Yeah,
about
and you're
if-
right, I left that out, but I meant to put it, so we would have that sort of phrase that they could
If-
serve out their term.
If you're in the two
Absolutely.
positions, you can, finish whatever, but then
Yep.
make it clear it doesn't apply to anyone else after.
Right.
Just the people
We've learned
in-
from that one. Yeah.
at the bylaw
Yeah.
time. So that needs to be added, but I would really like to see this go back to just taking out who the appointing authority is at all, and then work on stacking one later.
If I could just interrupt real quick, just to
Mr. LaFawn?
refresh the board's mind that any committee appointments by the town administrator can be vetoed by the board, the select
Correct.
board, too. So there's a layer there, too, that prevents stacking, just for what it's worth.
Yeah. Mr. Townsend?
Thank you. That was my point as well. We do have the right to veto any appointment made by the town administrator, so I think that's important. I do have concerns that if we draw this too strictly, that we could limit people serving on boards. So we want to be careful that we don't create a problem or exacerbate a problem. So those are my thoughts. And secondly, I agree with Jen, and that's the first thing I thought of when I read through this, that we don't address people currently serving on
Right.
those boards.
We'll have to
give them
add
a
that
chance
in.
to-
Okay, so, 1 second, then I'll let you go. So what I'm thinking is to take out the phrase in the first sentence, the last phrase, if that other position is appointed by the same appointing authority as the first, and just end it with, may not serve on another permitting authority or commission, period. And then the second sentence would read, in addition, any person elected to the select board, planning board, or board of health may also not be appointed to another permitting authority, board, or commission, period. If that works for everyone. And then there would be the final sentence that I would have to get the language to, that would ensure people can serve out their terms, and that, yeah,
Yeah,
the whole, yes, I do. Okay.
Grandfather clause.
Mr. Belbin.
Yeah.
All right, so,
Oh, and you wanted to add, can only be appointed to the ZBA.
ZBA. All right, the couple of things that I'd like to address. Number one, I agree with the grandfather clause that people be able to keep that position until it's expired, and whether they're on a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, they complete their term and then they go for it. I have no problem with that. Going back in this, I like options, and I think we should bring to town meeting both options. The option of A and B, that if you vote in A, then B doesn't need to be voted in. So we have the two different options, so Sarah gets her thing in there, and the other one so it's a single or a double, understand? For the two different options?
I don't necessarily need this to be my thing.
Well, no,
I was just trying to solve a
Just-
problem, but it may
Yeah.
not solve the problem.
well,
So,
and I just figured, like I said, I like options. And the town meeting probably like options too. This is the big thing here that I wrote. People keep saying it's going to keep people off boards. Okay? I take offense by that.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
All right, it says that if we limit this to people, they're going to keep people off boards. Okay? And I take offense by this because I've applied numerous times to boards and committees through this town prior to becoming a selectman. And they're not appointed because of my outspokenness. That's my opinion. That's why I was not put into those positions. Whether my outspokenness people didn't like, oh well, life goes on. But I'll tell you right now, this right here really makes a clear playing field for everyone to get on a board, committee, or commission. It is. If you're not stacking the boards and committees with whoever you want, that's going to help you in the long run, that's wrong. When you turn around and you have openings and people apply to them, and you don't appoint them because you don't like their position, that's wrong. They're willing to come in here and they want to serve, they want to help, and it happened here in this office here, all right, with the redevelopment authority, and what was done was wrong, okay? We had 3 people come before us to apply for 2 positions. One person didn't even apply for a position. The other one applied for 1 position, all right, and then turn around and they switched him from 1 position to the next here. And the one person that applied and he wanted the position, and the only reason he gave that the board didn't want it is because he said he wasn't sure what he was going to do and he's willing to do it for a year. Okay? But even still, one person didn't even apply for the position that this other person was applying for. And that's wrong.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're getting at, Mr.
What
Bell.
I'm getting at here is that we have to make a fair playing field for everyone that wants to become a member of this community within our town, that want to serve our town. And because you don't like their political position or whatnot, shouldn't take in the fact that they want to help our town. Period, cut and dry. This makes it an even playing field where you don't have somebody in the zoning board, the planning board, the zoning board, the Board of Health, the zoning board, the Conservation Commission, zoning board, Conservation Commission, planning board, the same person in these positions. We can't have that here in this town anymore. Okay? Because the impression that it looks like is that you're stacking boards and committees, and that's wrong.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bellin. Is there any further discussion? Would you prefer that we have a placeholder for this, and I come back to you guys with the modified version that we talked about tonight? Okay.
Please.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we keep a placeholder for this.
Thank you, Mr. Belbin. There's second, thank you, Mr. Hoffman. It's been a first and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. 5-0. I will work on that for you. Okay, next topic. Thank you all very much for that. That was relatively painless. Discussion and possible vote, goals and objectives of the select board. So this is for us to decide how we want to proceed with setting our goals and objectives for the year, whether we want to use a facilitator. We never did prior to 6 years ago. Before 6 years ago, we never did. We can, again. We can use the same one. We could use a different one. I did discuss this briefly with Rick, and we were both thinking of the Collins Center, because this is just the kind of thing they do. I don't know if you want to tell us a little about that, Mr. LaFawn.
Well, I think some of you are familiar with, there's a lot of services offered by the Collins Center, but I think certainly I can find a facilitator. I'm sure some of you can do your own homework and find a facilitator in the field. But I think going through, I think that would be what's the word? I don't want to use the word fair, because that would imply some sort of poor intent, ill intent, but just in terms of doing it through an academic institution, I think has some value to it.
Right. This Collins Center is part of UMass Boston, just for those who
Right.
may not know. So they work out of UMass Boston. Any further thoughts? Mrs. Bogart?
Question to you and Mark, because you guys were both on the board before that. Did you find it more valuable to have the facilitator versus when you didn't use one?
No. But that could have been exigent circumstances.
Okay.
I should have let you go first.
No,
Mr.
no,
Chairman. I
it's fine.
apologize.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the facilitator, I've only dealt with one since I've been on the board. That was when I first year I was on the board. I thought he did a pretty good job, but I'm not sure we couldn't have done the same job without the facilitator. So I don't know if he really brought a whole lot to the meeting. But again, I only have experience with that one
Right.
facilitator, so.
Mr. Belbin?
Yeah, this was the same one, I think when I first got on the board, we had it over the fire station.
Exactly.
Over
Oh,
there.
that's right.
That one.
You were there for that one.
And to be totally honest, I think, let's save some money and not spend money on this. There's other things in our town that we need to spend money on. Goals and objectives for our town is pretty simple for our small town here. Right now, we have to look at a number of different things within our town in the next few years. And just for this year, I think COVID's done a damage already for our town. And I don't think we need it. I don't think we need goals and objectives. I think we can sit down as a group and go through that and see what we actually need to do within this town. And part of it is already started here with town meeting and looking over our bylaws. So I think that's a good start, and we can move on with that. I think, like I said, that's my opinion, just to not do one this year.
Mr. Hoffman?
I agree. I agree with Bob. I think if, by hearing what I'm hearing from both of you that have had the facilitator before, if it doesn't make a big difference, if we can save some money on that
Okay.
and still accomplish the same goal, my opinion is I think we should not use a facilitator for this year
Okay.
as well.
I'll make a motion, we not use a facilitator for this year,
Is there a
and
second?
we have a discussion.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Further discussion?
I guess,
Mr. Hoffman?
so my question is this, so is it, again, being new to this,
Yes,
so this
okay.
goal and objective, is this an actual day we sit down and talk about? Is this an ongoing thing?
Well, it has been in the past, and
A one-day event? It has been in the past?
yeah.
Okay.
It may be a couple hours, an informal meeting, and we could make it a formal meeting.
Yeah, I think we should obviously have an exercise pre-planned as to how we want to go about it. I don't think just, getting together and sitting around. I mean, there has to be some format to it, but I can certainly work with the chair on doing that. Again, it's nothing it ain't rocket science, but at least, rather than everybody just sitting around in a room, I think some of it is your own homework in terms of what, where you think the town, where you want it to be in a number of years, what do you think the issues and concerns are, and then you kind of bring them to the table together. So it shouldn't take a whole lot of time. On the other hand, there should be a little bit of a process outlined for the board members, rather than just showing up and kind of chatting informally.
Right.
And like I said, I can work with the chair, whomever you want to work with, to put together a small process for doing such.
Okay. That sounds good to me. So there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? And that motion is not to have did someone make a motion?
Yeah.
Yes, I thought so. Okay, not to have a facilitator this year. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor, not having a facilitator and having Mr. LaFond and I figure out what we're doing and bring it to you. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Okay, thanks very much. The next item here is we need to delegate 3 select board members as designated members of the appointing authority for Old Colony Regional Vocational Technical School Committee. And in your packet, there's Mrs. Weston has added the legal things for you to look at. It's way down. It's after the Perry chapter land. Anyway, it's way down. Okay. Okay, so, I'm just going to read this. This is part of the Old Colony Regional Vocational Technical High School District agreement amongst the towns. I'm assuming that's
Yes.
correct. All appointments to the school district committee to be made by any member town, and the filling of any vacancy shall be made by an appointing committee of that member town, consisting of 3 members of the board of selectmen, 3 members of the local school committee, and the town moderator, who shall be the chairperson. The select board and the local school committee shall designate the members of their respective boards who will serve on the appointing committee, etc. That's basically it. So, we have anyone eager to do this?
Well, I'm not volunteering, but I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse my naivety, what does this mean and what does this do?
Mr. LaFawn, can you help with that a little more? I'm
Sure.
it sounds to me like if there's a vacancy, they need an appointing committee. If there's a vacancy in that town, they need an appointing committee, and the appointing committee is made up of 3 of us, 3 school committee members, and the moderator. So it's not us doing the appointing, it's not the TA doing the appointing, it's this subcommittee.
Yeah, this goes back to the origins of the intermunicipal agreement, because these days, why would you have a appointing group that includes a quorum of a board? I mean, it doesn't make that much sense when you have to post a select board meeting for 3 members of the board to participate. That being said, that's the process. That's the process. So, so the school committee has designated their own membership, and the moderator obviously is the moderator, and he chairs this committee. So now it's your turn to have 3 volunteers to do so. Obviously, it's not an onerous process. It'd probably take you 1 meeting. It has been posted, so it's been out there for quite some time. I don't know if we have applications yet. No, we don't.
Also reappointments every year.
Okay, so I think the school committee was also going to post it themselves so that, there's far and wide publicity for this opening. So that's the way it works, for better or for worse.
Thank you, Mr. LaFawn. Does that help, Mrs. Bogart?
Yes, follow up. Where and how often does this committee meet?
I think Mr. LaFawn was just saying it's probably going to be 1 meeting.
And where is it held?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Townsend?
just as a point of information, I've served on this committee twice. Normally, we meet in the room next door. I don't think it's ever taken longer than 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think that, because I was on it too, it was
Pretty-
about, it
So
was,
it's
pretty
in
quick.
town, you don't travel?
no,
No.
no.
In all honesty, the hardest part of the whole thing is finding a time that everybody can
Yeah,
agree
that's
on
right.
to meet.
I think it actually took 5 minutes, but, yeah, it was short.
Okay.
No.
Then I would volunteer.
All right, I'm willing to volunteer as well. Anyone else?
Be glad to do it if the board wants me to.
Very good.
Pleasure of the board.
Okay, now do we need the board to vote on that? Yes, okay. So there needs to be a motion and a second to appoint Mrs. Bogart, Mr. Townsend, and myself to this committee.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Thank you both. Motion and second's been made. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
And Sarah, can I suggest that the budget update be moved to a point in time where we're not holding up any guests this evening?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
No, I think that just, and also under the town administrator update,
Mhm.
the CARES Act update, I've asked Mike Ryan if he could provide the update rather than me, because he's been the point person for the town, and as this is changing daily, and it's a little confusing because of that. I asked Mike if he could come in and speak to all of us.
Great, okay. So at this point, I'd like to take the CARES Act update out of order and let our EMS Director, Mike Ryan, speak to us, if everyone is okay with that. And then after that, I'd like to have the Upland Ale Company representatives be taken out of order, so you guys don't have to sit here through our budget update.
I mean, I'm not going to keep you here all that long, but
No,
still.
Still, they have other things they probably want to do.
Exactly.
Good evening. Hope you mind if I take my mask off just so you
Of
can all
course.
hear me a little bit easier. As Mr. LaFawn said, he asked me to come speak tonight regarding the CARES Act and the town's response to COVID-19 that we've been dealing with since March, when the outbreak first began. Since the beginning of the pandemic, the town department's been working together to address the many issues and concerns that have developed. The first priority was obtaining the proper personnel protective equipment for our first responders and also for members of departments in town that would still have to work and be open. It was closely followed by establishing proper safeguards within not only the operations of the first responders as first responder agencies, but also town buildings. Those safeguards included proper disinfecting techniques, purchasing of new disinfecting equipment, and a lot of supplies of PPE and disinfecting materials through CARES Act funding. After that, we worked with the Board of Health to also move on forward to providing COVID testing for first responders in the town. And also we've opened that up to town employees that hold essential roles within town operations so that they don't have to quarantine for 14 days if we can test them and find out that they're negative if they've had a close contact. But the other big part was vaccinations. We were lucky enough to work with the town of Duxbury through a regional distribution site to get our first responders vaccinated through that. Currently, every first responder who chose to get the vaccine has been vaccinated with their first dose. Our second dose is scheduled for next week, starting February 10th. And then we have a couple of members who, due to different medical reasons or whatever, could not attend that, but we were able to, with the work with the Halifax Fire Department, they assist us with providing some first responder vaccines for them as well. So every first responder should be vaccinated within the next 2 to 3 weeks that requested it. That brings me on to vaccinations, which tends to be the biggest discussion point we have going on right now. I know the Board of Health and myself and the Council on Aging are getting multiple questions about vaccinations now that we're entering phase 2. I printed off something I found on the state website today and passed out for all you to use as kind of a visual aid. But phase 1 was mostly healthcare professionals, first responders, essential workers, say it. Phase 2 is actually going to be done in 4 steps. And its first step right now is individuals age 75 and older. It's great that they put that out there. To do that, we are working with the Board of Health, Council on Aging, Department of Public Health, trying to find out some more information on that. We've been working, again, we've been approved at different levels to be a subclinic with Town of Duxbury. So it's hard to get approved to be a clinic unless you have a need, a high need. So when they went for first responder vaccinations, you had to have a need to vaccinate 200 first responders. So small towns like ours granted, small town, we actually have the most first responders of the surrounding communities between the fire department, police department, and EMS side. We were pretty large, but we weren't large enough to guarantee that we could be a vaccination site for them. So we had to join with the regional with Duxbury and a few other communities. But we were able to, through Duxbury, become a subclinic. To say that progress has been slow and frustrating is probably an understatement. Been working on this for over a month now, and we're close to almost being done. It's a lot of messages and phone calls to the state, well, on both my side and also the health agent side, to try to get this clinic set up and running. That's a problem number 1. And Problem number two is vaccination availability. The vaccines, the state has not gotten nearly as many vaccines from the federal government as they were promised. I think anyone who's watched Governor Baker's press conferences can understand that frustration on his end. And then when they do look to distribute the vaccine, they're looking to get it out to where it's going to vaccinate the most amount of people in the shortest amount of time. So right now they have large distribution sites that can do thousands of people a day. Gillette Stadium is one location. Fenway Park is another. They're talking about opening the Reggie Lewis Center in Boston. Springfield is a mall in Springfield. Danvers has another location up there. Those are all where they're primarily pushing the vaccinations to so that they can get it out there. The secondary vaccination locations are going to be already established vaccine providers, such as your MinuteClinics, your Health Express, your CVS's. Currently, we have Big Hannaford's over in Middleborough, Stop and Shop in Halifax, and I think it's Big Y in Kingston, are the three local closest vaccination sites that we have available to our residents. And that is because they've already been an established flu vaccine administrator and have a history of working with the state doing that. But to get an appointment is very difficult. There are not a lot of vaccines available, so it definitely is frustrating, especially for those who are 75 and older and want to get the vaccine and who are at risk, can understand. I mean, people have been waiting 9 months waiting for the vaccine so that we can try to get back to some form of normalcy. With that, we've been working with the hospital. You hear that some communities have been looking to do vaccinations for their elderly population. They're in the same problem we are. Either they're having an issue with getting the vaccine or getting that final check off from the state. So we are honestly looking at two last steps. One is being set up to be able to schedule our clinic through the state website, which is through a software called PrepMod. And then after that is then having vaccinations that are available for us. We have capability to store it. We have people that can administer it. So it's all there. It's just setting it up. And that's the point we're at right now. The EMS's plan.
If I could interrupt you.
Oh,
So you're
go ahead.
saying that our EMS is in the process of setting that up and being a site itself?
Well, we could, if it came down to the fact that we needed to set up a site because of inability of people to get the vaccine, if, say, other places weren't opening, we could look to do that. Duxbury, who we are working with as a regional, they are going to be opening their regional for phase 2 as well.
Okay.
So they will be allowed through Duxbury High School. If people can travel there and get appointments there, they can go there to get vaccinated.
Okay, thank you.
Again, they have to meet step 1 of phase 2, which is you have to be 75 and older.
Right, correct.
And as things open. The EMS department of town is more looking to provide the vaccinations for those who can't travel. So we do have whether it be not a large population, but a population that has mobility issues. Can't get out, to get them out of their home, get them, the wheelchair bound or whatever ambulation problem they have where they can't walk or can't transfer easily. Having them try to go someplace to get a vaccine is going to be very difficult. So we're working with the local Board of Health to see if we can establish a program where we can go out and do those vaccinations. We've been told that CVS in North Carver will be opening up as a vaccination location. I guess this is some issues with them with the final steps for, they've addressed storing the vaccine, it's just getting the vaccine. So until they get the vaccine, they can't really go on the state's website as being a vaccination location. I actually just got off the email earlier this evening with our representative at the Beth Israel Deaconess in Plymouth. They will not be doing the vaccination out of the hospital, but they're opening up an off-site in Colony Place, per him, middle of February. So in the next week or two, they should have more information about a vaccination location over in Colony Place. When you do look at the map, it is pretty disparaging. I mean, we have Kingston, Halifax, and Middleborough, and that's it from here south. Plymouth doesn't have anything. We don't have anything in town. Wareham doesn't. Bourne, Sandwich. There's a huge area right in the middle that just doesn't have any sites open yet.
Could you tell us those 3 sites again?
Right now, the 3 sites are Hannaford's in Middleborough.
Okay.
There's Stop and Shop in Halifax, and Big Y in Kingston. It's all through their pharmacies.
Okay.
So their pharmacies are the ones who are giving the vaccinations there.
Thank you.
So that it makes it available nearby, but not in town. Like I said, we're hoping that CVS in North Carver will come up and be available. And then with the hospital opening a location in Colony Place, that will also be another location. And again, the focus of the EMS department with the Board of Health is to more try to establish for those who can't get to those sites. Those sites are very well established, can do it very easily. And then that's our goal with this whole program is the original plan was to help with the first responder vaccination and everything else, but it's taken so long to get everything done and in place that we kind of, by the time we're approved, the second dose of the vaccination is going to be an issue. Or will be, in our case, will be handled by Duxbury. We wouldn't be set up to do it by then. I think the other concern we have is the unknown. So the last conversation from the Department of Public Health was that local communities would be getting 100 doses a week, which is not a lot. And the concern we would have, and I would say this is more of a, to be safe, is that if the town, for some reason, was to start doing vaccinations and we were to start helping out, is those 100 doses a week really aren't 100 doses? Because you have to confirm that you'll be able to give the person a second dose. So for every 100 doses you receive, that's really only 50 people because they need that second dose because they're doing the Moderna vaccine. The Moderna vaccine is a lot easier to store. It can be stored between 5 degrees to negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Most commercial freezers can do that. The Pfizer vaccine, which is a 21-day in between first and second dose, it has to be stored at negative 70 degrees Celsius, which is negative 94 degrees Fahrenheit. I had to do the math on my laptop. Just so you guys know, I didn't pull off the top of my head. So that you really need an ultra freezer, which a lot of hospitals have, pharmacies have, and things to store very, very ultra cold medication they need to carry. We don't. There's no place in town that has it, and they're very, very, very expensive, and really only have one use. So there's really not really an investment in that. So we are still working on the inner workings to see how we can get it out to the public as quickly as we can. It appears that the quickest way is going to be through already established pharmacies and the hospital once they open up that location. But we do understand there is a need for a mobile vaccination plan. And that's what we're kind of working on with Duxbury. Okay. As being a subclinic, we would work with them, tell them how many vaccines we needed and when. They would fill out a transfer form because, again, the state is a lot of oversight on this because these vaccines are so valuable. They're so limited, they're so valuable. I'm sure we all have heard the stories of, doses being left out and going bad, dosages being put in freezers that weren't plugged in. So they're really cracking down on the safety and security and the monitoring of these vaccines. So the thought of Carver getting, 1,000 vaccines is not going to happen just because it's too many to put at risk for it to possibly go wrong where we're not already an established pharmacy and we're not already established vaccine program. But we are working on it to get that handled and get it out there and get the information out there. Speaking with the Board of Health, a lot of the concern also was the elderly people who are 75 and older's access to making appointments. And sometimes people who are 75 aren't as computer savvy, and that's the phone call I've been getting a lot from children saying, I'm trying to help my parents get this set up. They've actually just today released that if you dial 211, it will give you a prompt, and when it opens up, gives you a couple prompts, select this number for this. One of the number selections will be to make a vaccination appointment. So you can go through that. We haven't had a chance to try it yet to see how it works, but this, from what we got from the DPH, is that 211 will be an access point for people to make appointments over the phone. So they don't have to go online and click a link and follow that, which might make it a little bit easier for people. I know there was a lot of conversation, a lot of phone calls from children trying to help their parents get set up. And it's like, they don't have a computer. and it definitely makes it a little frustrating. So that is definitely one way of doing it there. We are working with, again, the Council on Aging, the Board of Health, to make sure we get that information out to the residents who are at risk and who meet the requirements for the first level of Phase 2. The timeline is a best guess, so everything they put out about how long it's going to be is their best guess. So what they want to do is they want to vaccinate get as many people vaccinated in each level before they move on to the next level. But just because, and this is, it was kind of a misunderstanding, I think, if someone is, say, a Phase 1 person who meets Phase 1 the requirements to get the vaccine, and they didn't get it, it doesn't mean that when they move into Phase 2 that they no longer can get the vaccine. It's it adds on to, it doesn't take away. So Phase 1, if you didn't get your vaccine, that's fine. You can still sign up, prove that you're a Phase 1 requirements that you know, whatever IDs you need to provide, and then you can schedule an appointment, get vaccinated. Same thing with 75 and older. After that is going to be anyone 65 and older with 2 or more comorbidities. The comorbidities are actually listed on the state website. If you have any questions, you can actually call, and they will give you as much information as they can. After that, we then enter into a lot broader range of people where you have early education and K through 12 workers, transit, grocery, utility, food and agriculture, sanitation, public works, and public health workers. A lot of people. So, but they're considered important infrastructurally for the state to continue operating everything moving forward. And then after that, the last step of Phase 2 is individuals who have one certain medical condition or comorbid medical condition. And they'll come out more as it gets further along what those, in the number 4, what is those medical conditions that they're talking about. After that, it's Phase 3, which is general public, which is when anybody who hasn't got the shot, now you can get it. And hopefully by that point, and this is why they did the phases, hopefully by that point, we'll be getting enough doses, so it won't be an issue. The reason why they did it in phases was because we're not getting a lot of doses. And again, 100 doses a week is not a lot. If you start thinking about that for communities, they're getting more, that's why we're saying that it's great to set up this program and try to get it in town and try to help out, but we don't see 50 doses a week to be anything to help with the residents because it's not enough doses. It will be enough to help those who can't travel, can't get to a location, stuck at home for whatever reason, and we can manage to go down, meet up with them, give them their first dose, schedule their second dose for 4 weeks later, and then get them their second dose through those that we get from the state. But as far as doing a vaccination clinic or a large clinic, it doesn't appear that we would even get the doses necessary to do that. So that's why we're recommending everyone to look at other means such as like I said, CVS in North Carver and also the hospital, which is great that they're opening. It's been something we've been asking them for a while now to see what they would provide. Like I said, they didn't really help out with the first responder vaccinations because they were handling their staff. And they have a very large staff. A lot of doctor's office buildings, a lot of doctor's offices that aren't on hospital grounds but are still referred to them and they're still responsible for. So they've been pretty impacted by this as well. So that's all I have for regarding the vaccinations. I have more to go into about COVID testing, but before I move on, I want to say if anyone had any questions about the vaccination plan or anything, if they had any questions. No? All right. So COVID testing is something that we started doing for, mainly for the first responders, but then we found it was a benefit to do for some of the essential town employees who work in the town hall, that, if they had to go work from home for 10, 14 days, would they still be as beneficial rather than, testing them and have them come back. So we started around January underneath the guidance of our affiliate medical director, Mark Tenowitz over at the Beth Israel Plymouth. The testing utilizes a rapid antigen test kit, which is a nasal swab. It gives us a test result in about 10 minutes. It is 99% accurate for positive testing. However, it does have a 15% chance of a false negative on negative results. Because of that, through the direction of our medical director, he urged that we do follow-up testing for all negative results. So every person we test gets a rapid swab and then gets another swab for a PCR test that we send out. We contracted with a laboratory out of Cambridge, the Broad Institute, which is probably one of the biggest labs doing this stuff now. They're doing almost all the colleges, most of the state colleges, definitely. And through them and through a ambulance company, Pro EMS out of Cambridge, they kind of spearheaded this. We take the sample, we submit the patient information for the person into their online database for the Broad Institute, and then we arrange a courier pickup through Pro EMS. They come down every night that we have a sample, so if we don't have a sample, they don't come. But tonight, we have one sample going out tonight. I'll get a text message when they're en route. They come down, they pick it up, they bring it to the lab. The lab's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And depending on how much they have in front when we show up, it's as it comes, it gets processed. So we're seeing results in less than 24 hours. Sometimes it's a little delayed if it's busy. It could be as long as 36 to 48 hours. Out of all those testings, we've actually only had a few of the negative rapid antigen tests come back positive on PCR, which is to be expected when you have a 15% false negative rate. But every person who gets tested, we always tell them, continue isolating until your PCR test comes back. Because again, the rapid is. But if they come back positive, rapid positive, we tell them, you have it. There's no point sending the PCR test out. And just to be safe, because we were getting a lot of positive results, we did send a few of the positives out for testing, and they came back confirmed positive from the lab. So just to kind of double check our stuff that we're using. But we're not using anything different than anyone else's. The rapid antigen test that we're using is being used by a lot of the departments around us. We actually, Halifax Fire Departments who started it, we ended up getting the same kits they used. And the PCR testing program was actually recommended to us by Duxbury Fire Department, because that's what they're using. So it's definitely a good tool. We've been able to clear people to return to work a lot quicker than would be if they had to wait the 10 days, which is recommended post close contact. So by us being able to test them, they can actually come back to work, and works great for the first responders, and it works great for those members of the town hall that have very important jobs, can't not have them working at home for 10 days. So the biggest thing talking to the Board of Health and is representing the work that everyone's been doing is we just ask for everyone to be a little patient. I mean, I know it's frustrating. I've yelled at my computer screen a few times in the last couple of weeks reading emails, but it definitely is something that we're all working on. We're trying to address. We know the state's trying to address it. They're just as frustrated because of the lack of vaccines available and the overwhelming need for the vaccine. And of course, it's, as I said in the beginning, it's been 9 months. It's been over 9 months now. We're going on 11 months that this has been going on. And people are sick of wearing masks, sick of being in the home, sick of not being able to get back to normalcy. So we definitely understand. And a lot of people are nervous. They're nervous about contracting the virus. They're nervous how it's going to affect them. So we understand everyone's concern and need and want for the vaccine. And we are pushing to try to get it to the residents and to the people as quickly as possible with working with the state and working with the confines of the vaccination program and everything that we have. So.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone have any questions, comments? Mrs.
Question.
Bogart?
Who has paid for like the antigen tests and the courier service and stuff?
So that's going through CARES Act funding.
Okay.
Yep. So CARES Act funding it covers that to testing everything because it has to meet the requirements of it's COVID related.
Yeah.
And it wasn't budgeted for.
So have we submitted for that stuff?
Yep.
Yes.
And like the first responder vaccinations and stuff, that's all?
First round of vaccination is actually a no cost.
Okay.
So the big thing with the vaccination is the state is giving the vaccination out to first responders for no cost. So we don't pay for the vaccine.
Okay.
The only cost that comes around with it is staffing the vaccination clinics. If you don't have all volunteers, if you have some people there have to be paid, like in some cases you have to have an ambulance standby, you have to pay the ambulance standby, things to that nature depending on the size of the clinic. All that money is also reimbursable through CARES Act.
Awesome.
So they're put in for that. So that was one of the benefits that we did joining with Duxbury is Duxbury took all the overhead and all the cost of it, and they went through their CARES Act in order to fund it. But as far as cost for providing a vaccine, the state is set, federal government and then the state is sending everything you need to give the vaccine. So you get the vaccine vials, you get syringes, you get needles, you get all alcohol prep pads, you get Band-Aids, everything. They're sending all that stuff with it. It's just literally the cost to print off the paper and to have people there at the site.
Awesome.
But again, when they first talked about the regional program, Duxbury was willing to submit CARES Act funding to get reimbursed for that and, cover that up front and go for reimbursement afterwards.
That's awesome. And what you were saying before, even if you think only 50 people a week can, get vaccinated and it's not going to make a giant dent, those 50 people matter. So I think it's awesome that you guys are going to take that on, even for just those 50 people a week. That's awesome. That's community right there.
Yep, and that's our goal, is to try to help as many people as we can get it. Like I said, it won't be a big dent. And I said, we know we have a lot of risk people in the different communities and different areas of town, and some of them, especially the ones that can't make it out to clinics, we definitely can work with the Board of Health to get to them.
That's awesome.
And that's the concern, and that's the thing we've been pushing for. More the community EMS program that we just recently went with will allow us to do at-home vaccinations, and that's the goal. And our medical director is excited about it, but at the same time, we're waiting. It's just waiting for everything to fall in line so we can move forward with it. So hopefully we'll hear something back by the end of the week. I've been receiving emails back and forth that, oh yeah, you need to talk to this person, you need to talk to that person, you need to talk to this person. So it goes around.
Yeah. No, I agree with Mrs. Bogart. That's a huge thing that you're doing for people who wouldn't be able to get out. That's a really big deal. Thank you. Anybody else?
That's great.
Thank you for everything you're doing.
The update.
Well, thanks, Mike.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Greg's up
Appreciate
2
it.
nights in a row, so.
Not third night in a row.
Okay. If there's no opposition, I'm going to hear the request for Farmer Brewery Serving Permit, Upland Ale Company LLC. And I was told that we forgot to add and common victualer's license. So this is, that was not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of meeting. So if and when we do a permit, we'll have to include that phrase as well. One of you like to come forward and just tell us who you are and tell us about your business?
All right. Okay, remove the mask, please.
Sure thing.
Okay. Michael Johnson. I'm one of the co-owners of the Upland Ale Company. With me is Jameson Wright, the other co-owner, and then Michael Ross, our architect, and Sean Ross, one of our contractors. So just a little bit of background. Last year, we were granted a brewer's license in Kingston, and that allowed us to produce malt beverages and sell those beverages not on-site, but retail and through wholesale. So it was a small operation, and where our plans are obviously to go to a bigger operation where we can actually open up a tap room, sell our beer on site, similar to other breweries that we've seen around here in the area. So we're coming before the board today to request a license to be granted for a pour permit on top of our farmers brewing permit.
Okay, great. And where would you be located in town?
We've signed an agreement with the management for the former Tiki Kai space over on Montello. It's in Silo Marketplace.
Okay. Great. Any motions, discussion from the board? Mr. Belbin,
Do you want a motion first, or you want questions?
let's have a motion first.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Discussion?
So, is this the layout that you're proposing?
Yeah, that's right. So I apologize for not getting this sooner, but those two pictures, one of them, the smaller one, that describes the tap room area, and then the larger one with the white space, that is the second area, which is the event space. So if anyone's ever been to the Tiki Kai before, you'll recognize a little bit, that's where the original bar was. And then the other space was the dining room space. We've taken over that space, and that's going to be our event space and overflow space.
Okay. And you do know there's an urban renewal plan, and that building's part of the urban renewal plan, that whole area? there? You're familiar with that?
Yeah, we've been briefed by our landlord on those plans, and I guess at this point, he has no plans to do anything with that space. But, yeah, we have been briefed.
Okay, I used to be on the RDA, that's why I just wanted you guys to be aware and make sure you knew that there is a plan, but, like I said, we don't know what it is, we don't even know what the existing plan for it yet, the proponent of it, so.
Right. When I'll tell you, we would have taken back when we first heard it, so we had to get reassurance, but, yeah, we've been reassured that we're okay.
Yeah, I think so too, but like I said, I just wanted to bring that forward so
Right.
people knew for disclosure that, hey, all right, there is that on the horizon, and even though that horizon may be many, 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 many years away.
And hopefully by then, we'll be big enough to have another building. So.
Right.
Yeah.
But thank you. I appreciate it. It's good to have another service here in town. I wish it was open later. I get out at 10:30. I can't even go out for a beer after work. But thank you. I appreciate you coming to our town. Thank you.
We're very happy to be here. Yeah, absolutely.
And I have to say, you're being very optimistic, doing something like this in these times. So that's good.
Well, it's interesting. I spoke with Jim Cook, the founder of Sam Adams, and I said, is now an okay time to start a brewery? And he said, absolutely. He said, you've got so many resources out there. You've got towns willing to help. You've got people willing to bend over to help. And you've also got the foundation of what we've all done in prior. So, life sometimes, leads in the right direction. Hopefully, this is the right direction for us.
Great. Mr. Hoffman?
Just a couple of quick questions. So, you're going to be selling the beer that you brew and also wine as well, it says?
No wine.
Okay, so it's just... okay.
Strictly malt beverages.
And is there food as well, or just beverages?
We have made an arrangement with the tenant. Just to give you a little background, the kitchen at Tiki Kai has been rented by a company called Eat Fits. They do healthy meals delivered to the home. We've partnered with them to provide us with small plate menus, as well as if we were to do an event and could provide a catering menu, they would also help with that. We also will be doing popcorn and whatever else the Board of Health may decide that we need. I mean, during this time, the Board of Health usually has some guidelines as far as what they want for food. And that's basically, from what I've been told by the Mass Brewers Guild, it's each individual Board of Health's decision on what they want to, want us to serve. So, yeah, we love food, and we love to have people sitting there and eating and drinking. Yeah, so, absolutely.
I mean, one of the reasons I'm asking these questions, because you are on TV and you want to get what your business is all about out to the general public, so.
Definitely.
Appreciate that.
Get as much advertising as you can right now.
Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Bogart?
Kind of to echo everyone, thank you for bringing a local business to town. And having told us that you're potentially working with whoever rents the kitchen, that's like collaboration local, but like that's so exciting. I know it sounds lame. So thank you for that. But kind of piggybacking on Jim, do you guys have a website?
Yes, we
Because
do.
the 10 people watching really want to know where to go.
We do have a website. Everything is ready to go. We just have to press the trigger to launch and go live.
Okay, so it's not live.
But
Okay.
we do have a very good Facebook presence right now as well as Twitter and Instagram. And we will be launching the website soon once we're closer to opening.
Awesome.
Yep.
Good luck.
Thank you.
And what's the website going to be called?
It's brewery44.com.
Very good. Thank you. You can't get farmer in there somehow? I'm just,
We tried.
You do what you
No,
want.
we tried.
okay. Any other discussion? Mr. Belvin?
I just want to make sure that when we do this, that we include the common victular license for this, along with all other licenses that have been applied for.
Yep, I mentioned that at the beginning, I think. Yes, thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, there's a motion and a second to approve the request for Farmer Brewery serving permit for Upland Ale Company LLC and common victular license. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very
We
much.
appreciate it. Thank you all for coming.
Good luck.
Thank you. Okay, I guess, Mr. LaFond, that you are up for the Plymouth Street water line update?
Yeah, the water line update. There's really nothing to report other than the bids are due by March 1 for the, for the design of the project, so, I'm sorry?
March 8th.
Oh, open March 8th.
They're due March 8th, and they open March 8th.
Okay. I defer to our capable Assistant Town Administrator.
Can you speak more closely
Yes.
to the mic?
I was complimenting the Assistant Town Administrator, that's why I didn't want to speak too clearly. So yes, I'm sorry, March 8th they are due, I'm sorry.
But they've gone out to bid.
Oh, yes, yes, they've gone out, yes.
Okay.
And as an aside, one of the things you'll see tonight, just briefly, is we are planning on having some funds available next year for the design feature too, because, you know, we've got, there's not just monitoring, but there's a design element that has to go into it, obviously. so.
Right. Right. That's great. Well, I think it's good to keep this item on the agenda. Just
Because it's obviously going to get, there's going to be a little action coming up,
that,
obviously.
yeah,
so.
but that's okay,
Yeah.
because at least people
That's a
know
good
we're
thing.
still going on it, we're
Right.
still working on it.
Right.
Mr. Townsend,
Just so, for the benefit of the public, so we are on track and on schedule with this project.
we're ahead of
Right.
schedule. I think.
We are ahead of the requirements of the administrative consent order, yes.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. So would you like to go back to the budget update, Mr. LaFawn? We have. three
Sure.
items we skipped. Thank you.
Be careful what you ask for, Madam Chair. All right. You're leaving? You don't even know if that is. Just let me start. I know, it's hard being the one with your back to it. Don't peek.
Way too quiet here. Was everyone prepared for this great blizzard we're gonna get? I'm glad.
Totally prepared. Some places did get it, though.
Yeah, I just pushed a bunch of slush.
I had some clients that got a pretty good amount of snow, so. I was happy that we didn't.
I was all prepared. I paid for gas, for the propane, for the generator. My plow was all ready.
Probably thank you for
Yeah.
not getting the snow then.
Bob was disappointed. That's-
I was.
Yeah.
I like the white
Well,
stuff.
it was tough to decide, you know, actually, in some ways, it was a little disappointing, you know? You
Yeah.
get all geared up for this, and...
We lost
Are
our.
we ready to go here?
We lost all our people.
I know.
Hello, everyone.
It's funny how this does it to people, so...
Oh, yeah, that's right, the budget.
All right. Well, the intent here, and this, without a portable mic, is to give a brief overview of where we stand right now in the budget process. We do have, and I've, with the help of Meg, produced a balanced budget for FY '22. That's something that works within the town's personnel policy, fiscal policies. Department heads, school administration, everybody is essentially on board with this. It's not a great budget, but it's good enough, we'll say. It keeps us whole, and it also addresses some fairly minor goals that we have for this year. And once again, everybody's cheating, so, but let me, I'll do my best to speak into the microphone. Okay, so,
You might have to hold the microphone, Rick, because
all right, I will.
it's difficult
All right.
otherwise.
So the revenue stream consists of the full 2.5 levy, which again has been the case for probably since 1982. We're using a fairly conservative new growth approach because there's been some spikes over the last year. So 6-year average at only 75%. We're also basically eliminating the meals tax as a revenue source, projected revenue source this year. Obviously, one of the big sources, the biggest, is King Richard's Fair. So we're hoping that's going to play to our advantage if we can reopen this year. But it also uses multi-year rolling average for local receipts, which we feel pretty comfortable with. I think that's reasonably conservative. So we're trying to find a couple areas that we can remain conservative. It still maintains the historic split with the school, which is part of the fiscal policy, and that's essentially 70%, 30% between the schools in the town after certain fixed costs and shared costs are eliminated. Sorry, I can take this off, can't I? There are some savings in here, not, LED streetlight conversions still plays to our advantage. It does add the recreation director position, coordinator. It's not a lot of money, but it builds in $20,000 into the operating budget. And when it starts to get tight, the budget, somehow $20,000 in a $44 million budget looks a lot larger than you would think. One of the concerns that we are all aware of in 5 years or so, we're concerned about the command staff of our police department. And we are adding funds for 2 promotions, two differentials for promotion from officer to sergeant, so that we can begin to build a command staff before before that is upon us. We also are. There's about $30,000 of an annual cost we're going to need for funding our software services for our online permitting, and that will certainly be helpful in terms of any staff reorganization and reassignment we have throughout the town government. And as I mentioned, it does maintain the full funding of the department downstairs. We should be, once we do some reorganization, the funding that's there now can be shifted within the budget to accommodate a full-time building commissioner. Keeping in mind, the goal here is not to reduce any positions. It's to reassign and make better use of the assets we already have. It does maintain the same transfer to the capital stabilization fund. When things get tough, it's easy to think about, reassigning, some of those the recurring revenue from our from our revenue stream away from that. But fortunately, we're not doing that this year. It does also provides for the scheduled capital expenditures. We are at a situation where we're still trying to close a bit of a gap between the requests and the amount that's available, but we feel we're getting close to that. One of the advantages we have this year is we have a 0 increase in our health insurance premium, which actually could be below 0 at some point, but it's too early to predict that. And I think we're all well aware of the fact that this is a good year for health insurance premiums because of the lack of utilization. And being in a self-insured group, when you're paying your own claims, that certainly accrues to our favor this year. Some of the things we're not too happy with is we got a big increase in our pension assessment this year, and we've got a $90,000 increase in state and county assessments versus an $80,000 state aid. What these 2 points there, I don't know if anybody's aware of what's called a cherry sheet. You've probably heard of a cherry sheet. It's not cherry, and no, it's no longer a sheet either, for that matter. And we were pleased to get about $80,000 more in state aid this year for between Chapter 70 and unrestricted local government aid. Unfortunately, we had $90,000 more in state assessments, so we had a negative state aid revenue this year. But realistically, we were actually very, very pleased to be in a situation where we weren't having to make significant reductions because of reductions in state aid. To be that close to zero was pretty comforting because we anticipated, well, we projected zero, which is what most of us, towns were projecting at this point in time. So we're pleased with that. I just think it's interesting for the people know how much state aid, they understand that, but they don't understand the backside of the sheet where they take the money away from you. And why do they call it the cherry sheet? Anybody know?
It used to be printed on a piece of paper, and it
Yeah.
was light pink in color.
Very good, very good. So,
Rick, can I interrupt you for a sec? Tom?
yes,
This zero increase in health insurance,
yes.
does that have anything to do with the Gateway Health Group that you started many years ago? Or is it just,
I'd like to say that it was that brilliance many years ago that is saving this funds, but it's really what's going around
okay.
right now, just because the lack of utilization, lack of unfortunately preventative care.
Okay.
So we're not. It does produce a nice surplus in the Gateway Health Group coffers this year, though.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask?
Oh,
Yeah.
Mr. Belbin?
Before we get too far, why was the 100,000 increase in the pension assessment for that?
That comes from the county. That's not health insurance. That's an
No,
assessment from
I
the
understand that,
county,
that's
yeah.
the county, but I mean,
Yeah.
was there a rationale for
No.
increase?
No, they don't. We don't get a breakdown of that. We just get the assessment.
Is that the same for the state and county one? That's just some number the state tells us?
Yeah, the state and county assessment is broken down into various categories, which, I don't have those on me at the moment. So it's a completely different category. Yeah, the pension assessment comes from Plymouth County pension system, and the state and county is really state assessments for the most part.
Is there any way we can find out why that was increased through Plymouth
I
County?
can look into that, Bob. Sure, we'll see what we can find out.
Just so, I mean, that's
I mean,
a
it's-
huge
it's a-
increase. That's a huge increase for a
Yeah,
town
but
like
it's
us.
an amortized funding of the retirement system based upon, demographics and anticipated, it's a, what's the word I'm looking for?
Actuarial.
Thank you, thank you. It was coming to me, Bob, it was coming to me, so,
right.
but we'll see what we can get for you.
Yeah.
That's So overall, the revenue summary, and makes me lament the good old days, but you can see the property tax at like 62%, our debt exclusion. I think that one thing of note, which I'll show in a moment, is state aid is at about a little over 28.5%. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, that was closer to 45% of our local receipts. Right following the first round of education reform, there was, I think we were almost at 50% of state aid being part of our revenue stream. As you can see, that's not what it is now. And for those of you, and it helps me to visualize this, that Pac-Man pie is just getting a little closed more as the property tax becomes more and more a part of the dominant part of our revenue. And it's always going to be the dominant part, but this is, it's unfortunately with state mandates, we have laws that don't mesh well. We have tax limitation laws, we have labor laws, we have other laws that they're just not compatible, unfortunately. This is the part that it really is a little bit disconcerting. If you look at local aid for the last decade, it's only gone 7.9% cumulatively. If you look at that FY11 number versus FY21, that's it's not helpful. So it's not good when you have a decade of practically flat line in terms of your revenue sources. So once there was a time we relied heavily on state aid. Unfortunately, there are towns that have been doing better, but the Carvers of the world haven't been benefiting greatly. As far as our expenditures, we have a $44 million budget this year, and that fixed cost is maybe not properly named. That's a combination of fixed and some shared costs. And what do we call shared costs in Carver? I know I'm going to make a mess here and have a tough time getting back to it, but yep, just like I said. Well, I can do it. Okay. Now it's on this screen. It's all in your the literature I have provided to you. This did work earlier for me, but our again, $8 million is a lot of money. So what is that? Well, a lot of it are cherry sheet assessments, tuition. I'm not sure if people charter school tuition or basically any of our children in Carver who go out of district to charter schools. We have to pay those what do you call it, tuition amounts, and that comes back through us as an assessment from the state. The big money is for in a good way is that we have about 3.6 million of that 8.75 is a transfer to our capital stabilization fund. And the other major piece of that is the $1.3 million, a little over $1 million of our assessment to Old Colony VOTEC. So these are, it's a big number.
Question.
Yep.
The school plus the town, is that supposed to equal the 35 million? Because I'm getting a different number. The 26 and change plus 10 and change, I'm getting a different number.
Well, let me see, 35,306. That's the available
37.
revenue, so.
When I add the school number and the town number, I'm getting
37.
37.3.
All right.
Yeah, that 35, it should be a 7. The rest
Okay,
of my number
this
matches
is,
up.
this is why, because the total shared budgets, now, I'm gonna take
that's-
full responsibility for that as I blame the finance director. No, I'm just kidding. We have certain shared costs. For instance, okay, this is where Old Colony VOTEC, the elementary school debt exclusion, and snow and ice removal, those types of costs that should be deducted from that. So, sorry for the confusion. Ultimately, as you can see, our breakdown between school and town remains the same as it always is. That used to be, as you know, it's part of the town's fiscal policies now. It's no longer just a gentleman's agreement that we've always had with the school administration and the school committee. I'm getting there. Okay, we've got that now. Okay. This did work earlier, just so you know. Okay. Somehow, it's not getting from here to there.
Are these just the cutouts, the graphs? and
Yes,
stuff?
it's everything that you have in there right now, which to some extent is again more visual for people who aren't here to see it. I'm having a total technical breakdown right now. Well, nothing's happening at the moment, so my apology. So until something does, I'm going to have to work off the information you have in front of you. And we've already talked about the revenue problem. So the breakdown of our overall budget here, school budget, remains at, again, 69%. This is rather frustrating, everybody. My apology.
So those numbers there, all right, that doesn't, oh, there you go.
You got it on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, there we go. Okay, we got through the revenue.
Yeah, keep going.
And my whining about state aid. Okay.
So those numbers there don't include the shared between the school and the town?
Yeah,
That's less the shared
correct.
costs.
That's
And the shared
correct.
costs are moved up under fixed costs?
That's correct. And the fixed costs are, oh, yes. It's interesting, in Carver, we're a little bit different in that the school and town kind of individually pay within their own separate category, their own fixed costs, like health insurance. So the school in their $26.6 million actually absorbed the cost of health insurance for their employees, which has its advantages in that everybody's an equal stakeholder in doing what we can to keep our costs in line. A lot of times it's, I don't want to use the word fighting, but you have different goals, labor goals and negotiation goals, when the town, so to speak, is funding health insurance through their budget. So it has worked very well in Carver for a long time. Okay. I think my technical issues have been solved. I wish I could tell you what happened, but... And again, this is not something that's particularly helpful when you're looking at it on paper. But overall, the rest of the budget, the non-school budget, if you look at the big piece, employee benefits is always a huge piece. And I think we all know it intuitively, but in terms of a portion of our overall spending and a portion of our employee costs, it's big. So you see 23%. Total town budget, this is what happens when you take away all those fixed costs and all those shared costs. For instance, O&M is not in the, snow and ice, Old Colony of OTEC. The school budget is about, with everything included, the school budget's about half of our overall spending. However, when you now eliminate those shared costs, that's exactly where we want to be, based upon our fiscal policies. And again, there's no surprise there, but I think you have to put 70% in context.
Yeah.
You can't just look at a bottom line and say the school gets this and the town gets that. And I even hate saying that, because we really are, we're all together, which is, so what's next? Same as it always is. Try to capture new growth. I think there was a time where there were some challenges in capturing all new growth. And once you lose it, it's hard to get it back into the tax levy. So I think you've all met Craig Schoaf, the Assistant Finance Director, and he's really doing a great job at trying to catch up as much as they can. We are very diligent in tracking our local receipts. It's it's been a little bit different this year because the licenses and permits, there's been ups and downs, but overall, they're doing reasonably well. We know the meals tax has been hit hard. That's about $130,000, so we're not projecting any of that next year. Police building, one of the things we really don't know yet is what the operating costs are going to be for that. I know that we have some, to some extent, we have some idea, and Elaine deals with this, is the, building in some costs for municipal insurance, because the operating budget is going to have to bear the cost of that. So even though you're going to have a new building, reasonably efficient, we don't know yet exactly what it's going to cost to run that. We have a number of solar projects I think you're aware of brewing, so to the extent that we can capture as much new growth. Also, there's one-time money available out there for permitting fees, which can be substantial. Once again, it's one-time money, but it's money ultimately that can accrue to us in the terms of free cash. If there's anything else there. Shared services, sometimes they become a little bit of a sacred cow, or kind of the third rail when you try to deal with your neighboring communities to provide services and share services. But it's something that I think we have to always keep in mind when there's an opportunity. I think one of the, challenges around here is that who you partner with for what services. And I think, Plimpton has sought a lot of help from Carver in some areas. I don't know how that could be reciprocated and this isn't to knock Plimpton, but it's just a matter of resources. But obviously between Middleborough and Plymouth, and we think we have some good neighbors if we can find some way to share services. But like I said, that can kind of be the third rail politically, and that's not to knock anybody, but that's just the reality of it. Technology, I think we're going to be very pleased with what we find from our permitting software downstairs. I think this is, that's just one of the kind of on the cutting edge, so to speak, which isn't really that much any cutting edge anymore. But in terms of financial software and the ability for people to have less people do more over some period of time, I think that's through attrition and other ways. I think there might be a way to incorporate technology and realistically to allow people to do more at home, to keep them out of town hall. We love people, but if we don't have to have them in town hall, that's not a bad thing. The more people can do from home, the better for all of us. As I already mentioned, shared services. So I think that the keys here to remember is that, we've got a $44 million budget. $8 million plus of that is really not in play from a standpoint of operating budgets. And we have a historic split. We're being fairly conservative with our revenue estimates at the moment. And I'm not sure if there's anything else that's that relevant here, other than, trying to keep our revenue sources in line. What else I have in your packet there is something that I know is somewhat of an exercise every year. In terms of is this going to work for me? We do a 10-year revenue projection, and that has some value. I think one of the I think there was a time when I used to do a 5-year forecast, revenue expenditure forecast. And here we go again, everybody. So, bottom line is you have a 10-year forecast, revenue forecast. And as you can see, if you look at state aid in there, it's growing at a very, very modest rate. It's only about 1% a year. And ultimately, unfortunately, it's not that different from what we've seen over the last 10 years. That's a problem. That's a real problem, because as your revenues, as your fixed costs grow, your labor and 2.5% of your in new growth is not a lot of funds to run a government on. And when you have almost 30% of your overall revenue that's completely outside of your control, that's a very tough way to run any type of organization. I think I'm getting warm here. No, I'm not getting warm, yeah, so.
That's okay.
It looks good on the screen. It looks
I
real
know.
good on the
That's
screen.
okay. You can just tell us.
Can everybody see this?
Yeah.
Can the people at home see this screen here? The other piece here is that in your packet, you have a copy of, or as a side note, the capital plan this year. And we've got about 3.6 million to spend. There's two major issues with we've got two big pieces there between the library HVAC system and the town hall siding. I haven't given up, Sarah.
That's okay. But
I haven't given up.
You
You have it in your packet.
Yeah, just go ahead and tell us. That's fine.
The siding for the town hall has to happen this year because it's a matter of, there's damage to the building if it's not done. We do have funding for that this year. It's going to be about $200,000 in total. There's already about $120,000 put aside from prior fiscal years for this project. Fortunately, there was about $400,000 pegged for it this year, but now that there's been better estimates from Dave Seatentop, we feel we can get that done this year without having to do some sort of bond authorization. The library's a little bit of a different situation. There was about $500,000 designated for this year and another $500,000 for FY23. The problem with that is we have an upstairs in a library we can't use in the summertime right now. Unfortunately, I think, Dave's concern is that it takes a level of sophistication and qualification to determine just how much it does cost. And his thought is we really need to have that engineered. We need to have somebody who's qualified to review the building, review the systems that are available. He's estimating that will cost, about $50,000. And I think that should be our goal this year, to make sure that we have the funding available to get that building engineered, maybe later in the year in a special town meeting, or even if it has to wait a year, which I would hate to see that happen. But to have, when you just plug in big numbers, it's disconcerting because now you're not doing other projects that you would like to do. And ultimately, you're plugging big numbers over a period of time, and that's okay 4, 5, 6 plus years out. But as you get closer to actually having to put money aside and actually make expenditures, you really have to have good information, good bidding information, good technical information, and that's something that we haven't really had with the library, and we really need to get that done. That project may not be $1 million. That project may be $200,000. We just don't know at this time. But when you look at the capital plan and you take out some of the, that cost, that $500,000 that's pegged for the library, makes a big difference. It makes everything else work. One other factor is last night the Finance Committee met and did make a reserve fund transfer to pay for the deficient air handling system, which the fire department uses to fill their air tanks. That's failing. So we didn't want to wait any longer. We didn't want to wait till a town meeting. Obviously, have to go out of town to Plymouth to fill air tanks it's not acceptable. So the Finance Committee did transfer funds for that last night. It's about $70,000. The good news is that comes off our projected capital plan for FY22. So things are beginning to fall in line to make the capital outlay plan work as designed for FY22. We have a balanced budget right now. It meets the modest goals that we have, which is those 2 sergeant upgrades, the recreation coordinator position, getting that in the budget, level services otherwise, and getting maintaining the funding to get a full-time building commissioner this year. Unfortunately, it's not a year for grandiose, thoughts, and eventually we're going to have to start dealing with, how we're going to handle police staffing in a larger, in 5 years or so. But, that's kind of a multifaceted approach. The town, as you know, has done very well with getting lateral transfers over the last, 10 years plus. So I think a combination of some new officers and projecting at least some potential lateral transfers, I think by 5 years we'll we'll be okay. But I think in FY '23 and '24, we probably have to think about actually budgeting for additional police, maybe one per year. But this isn't the year for that. So everybody's reasonably whole. People have been willing to, take it on the chin a little bit, with their expenses and some of their projected expenses. On one hand, it's level services with regard to expenses, but we've done some analysis to look at tracking over the last couple of years and try to use that as a jumping off point rather than just what's in the budget this year. So there's some areas that are going to look like they're cuts, but they're not really cuts. It's more of a, correcting some of the historical projections here. But once again, everybody's on board. The Finance Committee has begun their job in terms of discussing, interviewing some of these department heads. That just begun last night. They're going to be continuing that in 2 weeks, and then following week after that. Hopefully by the second week of March, they'll be done with their job, and would, then have a meeting with the board, the select board, to kind of go over their conclusions and their recommendations, and hopefully that will, the board will be on board with the Finance Committee's recommendations, which I will also suggest will be exactly what Town Administrator recommendation is also. So we are working very close together. We're working very closely with department heads, and it's nice to get to this point when, if we went to town meeting tomorrow, we would have, unanimous consent. So I am sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm sure the people at home are very disappointed by that. But if there's questions, I'll take them. If they're extremely detailed, I'll be happy to follow up with any questions you might have. I know Bob's already asked one, and we'll do what we can to get those answers to the board. So if there's any questions at the moment?
I would like Rick to ask at what point will we be getting together with the Finance Committee? I did talk with the chair, and, we agreed that they wanted to meet, and then we were going to meet like we are tonight. But at some point, it would be nice to maybe go back to having that one Saturday meeting. And would that happen after they're finished with their
I think that would be
discussion?
Yeah, I believe that would be a time to do it. Unfortunately, in this setting, we can't get everybody in the same room unless you're at,
Right.
Like the high school, and that's really not conducive to having, good conversations, in kind of a cavern. So allowing them to go ahead and kind of do what I know the process has been, different over the years. It used to be kind of a joint meetings, these super Saturdays.
Right.
I remember the bagels well, the good old days. So at this point, though, not being able to get everybody in the same room, I think it's better if they just go about their business. And we are hopefully looking at maybe the third Saturday the second or third Saturday in March to have some form of a summit with the board, whether it's, again, an all-day Saturday or a couple nights. That's, to be determined, but I think, for better or for worse, this is, the process is, it's not broken down, but I just feel, I want everybody to feel like they're comfortable, and it's just not, this era we're in isn't necessarily conducive to that. But I also, obviously the chair and the vice chair of the Finance Committee and some of the members that have been there a while, I've tried to keep them in the loop. So hopefully we will have consensus, and I think, the department heads are on board. I think the Finance Committee is ultimately going to, be on board. They've obviously already had consideration of the larger municipal budgets, and they're supportive of what's currently being recommended. And that's where the money is. So I feel good about it. I think if we went town meeting tomorrow, we'd have a balanced budget, we'd have a capital plan. It would really be great if this worked, because there's another piece here that's fairly.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Belbin.
So, Rick, with the capital plan in place. Now, town hall siding, definitely, that's
Yeah.
got to be addressed. I mean, it needed to be addressed a number of years ago, but it kept on putting side, to actually be done. The library too, with the air conditioning system, it got brought back to us saying that there was an alternative plan that we can do something in there to keep that running, and it's always been an issue for a number of years. So the other issue with both buildings is the roof. I mean, the roofs, when was the roof ever replaced for these two buildings?
Yeah, I don't think they've ever been replaced, Bob, and I don't see them. They haven't been on the capital plan as been projected out for quite some time. So I don't, at this point, know the condition of the roofs in terms of when they need to be replaced. So, yeah, that's a question that for Dave.
So, I mean,
it's a good
you,
point.
you think about our buildings in town, and like I said, I've seen them, and other people seen the tops on the roofs as oh my God, I don't want a top put on the roof. I mean, we need to maintain our structures that we have. And in the past, there's been structures that weren't maintained, and they had to get demolished. So we really need to maintain our buildings, and I'd hate to spend a number of $50,000 or $40,000 for an engineer just for one building to say, okay, well, here, you do that building. But you know what? We need to look at all of our buildings to make sure that they're maintained. Not just the siding and the paint and whatnot, but the main structures of the
Sure.
building.
Well, I do agree with you, and I do think that, again, and Dave Seidentop he's eminently qualified to do that. I know this organization hasn't been in place very long, the reorganization, so how much effort, or time he's had to look at that, Bob, I'm not exactly sure at this point, but I found it. Okay, this is actually an important piece. We've got about $1.4 million in free cash, and one of the ways that this budget works this year is by taking things out of the operating budget that may have been in the operating budget but are indeed one-time costs. For instance, the Health Mitigation Fund, $230,000. Does everybody know what that is? Okay.
You should probably explain it.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly when, but a couple years back, the town made some changes to its health insurance plan design. And one of the agreements with the collective bargaining groups is that the town was going to put aside a fund of money, a pot of money that would be funded basically along the same split, as the operating budgets with the town and the school. And that money would be used, it could be, an employee could apply for a refund for the difference in benefit, between the former plan and the current plan. So if they're, just in its simplest form, if you had a $100 deductible that you didn't have before, this fund would be there so that somebody could make application and receive that $100 difference. And again, I'm just using round numbers. And there'd be a fund in place for that to happen until the money ran out. It was basically a transitional way to get people from one place to another with as little harm as possible. Well, there's 2 years left on that. The town was putting aside, I believe in total, probably close to $500,000 over a period of time. And I'm just looking at the trend here, because $230,000 is what it would take to fund the last two pieces of that set aside. So that's $230,000 that otherwise would be coming out of the operating budget. However, our thought process is, and this is, our finance group in total, is to basically take that money and just pay that off, pay that down right now. Put that aside, take it out of, so we don't have to deal with it in this year's operating budget or in the 2023 operating budget. And it's not the type of thing that is, it's not paying recurring costs with one-time funds. It's essentially a temporary expense anyway. Plymouth County pension, one of the things that's, this has been coming out of free cash at times. Over the last few years, you're probably aware that in order to get to a certain point in time and the county amortizing its overall unfunded liability by 2027? Anyway, this is what this is to help that, get to that amortization schedule. The other big, obviously, we know the North Carver Water District. The executive consultant, that's something that would drop off after FY '22. So using a one-time revenue source to pay for what is effectively a one-time expense, that seems to make sense to everybody. And I say everybody, meaning the school administration, Meg and me. So these are one-time, these are really retiring one-time costs that otherwise would be in the operating budget this year, but they wouldn't have to be next year. So we're not really using one-time funds for recurring long-term obligations. So when you take these factors out of, pay for these, but, through free cash, you're using a lot, that's a lot of money there, about $1.4 million that otherwise would have to be within this operating budget. So that's something you need to be aware of. I think it's a good use of free cash. It shows the value of being conservative with your revenues. And hopefully, we won't see this type of situation again where you have free cash and you have to use it for these things, but it really is ultimately a one-time fund paying for one-time or last-time expenses. So, but that's what makes the overall budget work. That's a big part of it. And I'm glad I could get my technical pieces together here, because I wouldn't want you to not know that piece of it.
I have one more question.
And we need a better IT guy, just so.
It's all right. We didn't hire you to be.
No, sorry. Was that, I'm
Any
sorry,
discussion,
Bob.
Mr. Belvin?
Under our Selectman Town Administrator budget,
Yes.
$121,000 for town hall, additional hours, salaries, aides, incentive pay.
Yeah.
Why is that so high of a number?
That, couple of reasons. Number one, in terms of what it was in FY '21,
No, 22.
I don't have my glasses on.
22 department requested. And then,
Yeah. That line,
and then you come back and say it's 95,000, but even
I'm sorry.
still,
I just want to find it here, Bob, sorry. No, okay, as you can see, it was quite a bit higher, FY '22. Yeah, you're going from 119,000 to 121,000, and that was when I say the request, that when we looked at, there's a number of things that come out of there. Number one, it's any additional staff time that we need here. It's also where different, where COLAs for non-union employees. It's also a fund that's available for when collective bargaining is concluded. There has to be a place to get those types of funds. So it's kind of a catch-all for personnel costs that otherwise just don't fit in the budget anywhere neatly. But so there's a lot that goes on there. For instance, if we needed some temporary help in a department, that's the place we'd go to get the temporary help. That's when there are COLAs approved, when ultimately we have a collective bargaining agreement that we have to deal with. We need to have funds available. So that's why you see that number there. One of the other pieces here too under that particular budget is we know that we're going to have a retirement in our office, and we're planning on not filling that. So again, we're all trying to do our part here, to make this budget work. And
no, me too, me too.
No, I'm just saying, I just want
So-
and that includes our office. That
So,
includes
so,
our office.
so, Mr. LaFont, could you explain why it is we need money to conclude collective bargaining, for those who don't know the answer?
Well, I'm going to be careful with this, okay?
Okay, well,
we need,
in as much as
obviously,
you can explain.
when a contract is funded, you have to have an appropriation. Now, that can be, if you talk to the lawyers, they may tell you two different things. A lawyer may say, well, there's an appropriation somewhere in the budget, so it's funded. Some will tell you that, well, you need to take this contract directly to town meeting and have town meeting fund this contract. I don't think many attorneys will tell you that, but you hear it both ways. So realistically, if you know, pick a group. I think the end of this year, our DPW group, for instance, is their contract is expiring. So we're going to be involved in a collective bargaining process. It's going to be a contract settled, and it may take $15,000 to fund that in the first year. This is just an example. So we have to have a place, we need to have that money somewhere. You know, we don't want to have the special town meeting just for
No.
$15,000 contract.
No, I understand. I just,
And when there's, again, a non-union COLA, whether it's 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever it happens to be, it has to come from somewhere.
right.
And that's where it comes from. The operating budgets obviously build in steps that are already in whatever groups or whatever personnel plan steps, grades, ladders. Usually they're 2% steps. Those are already built into the budget, but anytime you have a COLA on top of
Yeah.
that,
Not, yeah,
it has to come from somewhere.
yeah. Budget doesn't include cost of living.
Yeah.
Mrs. Bogart?
I kind of want to piggyback on what Bob said. On that line with the additional hours, salary adjustment, incentive pay, the 2020 actual was just over $24,000, and then it jumped up almost $100,000. What was the
Yeah.
difference there in that year?
I would ask Elaine to comment on that.
Actually, I asked Meg the same question because I noticed that when I was putting the money into the budget, because it does show a huge increase. I believe her answer was that the COLAs for that year, she had already taken out of the budget. So I don't know how it works in the SoftWrite system, but she had deducted that from the computer into the COLAs
Okay.
for the non-union people.
All right, so effectively, it was transferred out of this line. So this line looks artificially low, the money.
Right.
What I can't tell you is what that started at. I don't have that
then-
available at the moment.
What qualifies as incentive pay? What is that?
I know incentive pay can mean many things, but for instance, if somebody doesn't take sick leave for, a period of time, you might get it, and it might be something that's bought back by the town. If somebody, I guess, buys back vacation time that they don't use. Those are the types of things that usually are incentive-type pay.
So that's all like in contracts. That's not like, hey, guess what? You
No,
did a
no,
good
no,
job
these
this
are-
week. Here's
no,
like a
no,
little
no, no.
bonus.
No, it's not
No.
that. It's,
No, if that were the case,
Contractual incentives. It's not
yes,
like.
they're built into the personnel plan or contracts, right?
Okay,
So,
they're
Yeah.
not just
No.
like.
It's not what it
walking
sounds like.
around like you
No.
get a car, you get a car.
no.
no, Jen, it's not like that.
But if you want,
The incentive.
but if you
I
want
know.
to give me a car, I'll take it.
But, so it's
No,
not
but
just
it's
coming
no,
from
but it's a
you.
good point. Exactly. You see line items, you don't
It's just-
necessarily know what they mean,
Well,
right?
yeah, you see incentive.
Yeah.
And then, so if I had questions on any other line items, who would I talk to or how would I?
You would speak to me,
Okay,
and I will get you answers, because
Cool.
some of them I would know, some of them, again, I'm just getting refamiliarized with the system here.
awesome.
It's a bit different.
Mr. Bell?
But,
So I'm just attacking ours right now.
go for it, Bob,
We
go
have a
for it.
discussion tomorrow with something else, but.
Sure.
With ours here, is there an accounting of these monies, of where they were directed from last year here? We can't know what's gonna come next year, but maybe coming before us and giving us an accounting of what that money was used for last year would give us an understanding of possible future.
Yeah, we
use of
can
money.
get a printout from the accountant's office of the activity from the line items. We can get you that.
I think that will help
I don't
us.
think it's going to be very, it's not going to be very, I don't know how helpful it's going to be, because obviously these aren't big sums of money, but in terms of but certainly if you
When
want
we
to see
talk
that.
$100,000
happen to see
here,
it.
and that's a position or two in the town, I mean, it is some money, so, I think the public has a right to know, we have a right to know, and we're gonna turn around and say, hey, if we're gonna use this money and it's the taxpayers' money, then we need to know where it went,
No, you need to be satisfied.
so,
That's
thank
fine.
you.
Yep.
I think I beat you up enough tonight.
That's all right, Bob.
Anyone
This
else?
is- You beat me up worse than this, Bob. This is nothing.
Anyone else have questions or comments?
And again, if you do, don't wait till a meeting, give us, throw me an email, give me a call. There's some level of detail that I'm personally not familiar with enough at this point, so.
Well, because you're working off a budget that was not yours originally.
True.
Yeah.
But I hope you got the context at least.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
You know where to find me.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Let's set a time for annual town meeting on Tuesday, April 13th, 2021.
I'd make a motion that we start town meeting at 7 PM.
Oh, okay.
I second that.
Motion and a second to start town meeting at 7 PM. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. And schedule a date with KP Law for an open meeting law forum for the select board and all town officials. Mr. LaFawn and I talked about this, and we were thinking it could be sort of a Zoom workshop, because, there are a lot of town officials.
Right.
So-
And I did speak to, communicate with Greg Corbo, who said he is available on the 16th, which is your next regularly scheduled meeting, if
Okay.
that's when you choose to do it. And if you do, obviously, we'll get the word out to all our boards, committees, and employees, hoping they will participate.
Okay.
But again, that's just a suggested date,
Mhm.
but that's,
We could do that, and that would be a Zoom meeting. Mr. Belbin?
Yeah. If I remember correctly, because this is a workshop, it's not covered under the open meeting law, therefore it doesn't have to be posted, if I remember correctly, and therefore that all town officials can be part of it and
right,
have a
there's
clear-cut
no,
discussion with it.
there's no deliberation by a board, correct?
Correct.
So I guess my question would be then, would we really want to do it on our meeting night?
I'm going to be here anyway, so that's your call.
I mean, I know we have other business to take care of as well. Mrs. Bogart?
How long do we think it would be? I mean, if our meeting starts at 7, we could all be here at 6. We could have the meeting, other people could Zoom in, and then we could have our normal meeting at 7, or, I don't know how long it's going to be.
I don't either. I would say you probably have to, I would think it's probably got to be at 2 hours, because you're going to have some participation, you're going to have questions. So I think you really have to allot 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it could be longer depending on people's interest, but I think
Yeah.
that's a reasonable amount of time, personally.
And I have another question for you, Mr. LaPone. Do you think this is something town officials would prefer to do separately from us so that they can do it during their workday? Town employees?
I think it's better altogether, because I think you get the benefit of other people's questions and those answers.
That's true.
Does
Mr. Belbin?
Copeland and Page have already a template for basic information someone could go to a website and go see some type of a presentation that was given? Because there was one that I went through from Mass Municipal Association where Copeland and Page attorney was there and gave us a brief overview of open meeting law, public records, something like that we could watch first, get that, and then have a subsequent one with Mr. Corbo to go over and say, if everyone's read this, everyone's seen this one first, great, no problem, I'm gonna build off of that and open up for questions. Because questions with this one was about an hour for the questions that people had there. Just on questions. They didn't get them all, but got a good,
For when, Bob? When specifically, when you,
that was right
When
where
did
I
you-
started. So a year
and
and a
then,
half
was this
ago.
a live? You said
No, it was live.
It
This
was
was,
live?
this
Okay.
was prior to COVID.
Mass Municipal Association meeting?
Yeah,
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
yeah.
Well, I guess the only challenge there is that, everybody who would be Zooming in would have had to have had the benefit of what you're talking about in order to fully participate. So if you're asking, just pick somebody, a member of the, the planning board, who hasn't had the background by watching or, what you're referring to. Now they're joining a meeting that's already 2 steps ahead of where they are
I
in
guess,
terms of their knowledge base. That would.
I guess I understood your question to be, is something like that available to be given to people in
Oh, I'm
advance?
sorry.
That's
Okay.
That was my.
Okay,
that was-
Bob, I'm sorry,
That was
I
my question. Does
misunderstood.
Copeland and Page have
Yeah.
something already?
Yeah.
Which I'm probably sure they do.
They-
that you
they
could
might.
turn around and
Yeah, they
click
might.
on and watch it through their site or whatever.
I mean, I know they have literature, obviously, but.
Right,
but
right. And I know the state open meeting law, they have information there, and Secretary of State's public records, they have their own things there, and
Yeah, I'm not aware of a library of those types of, other than literature, I'm not sure, but I'll certainly look into that tomorrow.
Okay,
Bob.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would the board like to do? Do you want to meet early on the 16th to have our regular meeting and then go to the Zoom meeting, or vice versa, or Mr. Townsend?
Well, I mean, if the estimated time for this is 2 hours or so, that means we have to meet at 5 o'clock. So I guess my question is, would everyone be available at 5 o'clock? And if they are, that might be easier, just to have us all, get it all over at one time, but.
Right.
So you're suggesting the meeting for the open meeting law, public records law at 5? Or are you talking about getting your business done with so that you can participate in because I think if the goal is to try to get other boards and committees, have it available to them, would 5 o'clock work? Like I said, I'm going to be here anyway, but that's your strategic
Yeah, but,
consideration.
I mean,
I
we're
guess it could
limited
be
of how
either
many
way.
people can be here.
No, we're talking about a Zoom meeting.
So Zoom meeting, then, okay, that's fine, I have no problem with that. I mean, how many people can the cable access channel handle? Do they have a 100-person limit? 500? Because there are limits on how many people can participate in it. It
Well,
goes by levels of how much you pay, because I'm looking at this
Right.
for the district.
So I think the school district has a 500 to 1,000, if I'm not
Okay,
mistaken.
so-
I'm sure Area 58 has more than 100. I mean,
Yeah.
I would be very surprised if they didn't.
Just wanted to make sure that we have enough.
Okay, so I want to pin this down. Do you guys want to have your select board meeting at 5 and then followed by this workshop, so that those town officials who, are working from home, I don't know, are available at 7? Or how do you want to do it?
I feel like it should probably be the other way around, because we may not know when our meeting's gonna end. So I would hate for it to
Okay.
say, okay, the KP thing's gonna start at 6:30, and then us be like, oh, man, we aren't done, or, oh, we were really quick. So I feel like the KP thing should be at 5, and just kind of know they have a 2-hour deadline, because we're starting at 7.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
I
I
like
think it should
that.
be something totally separate.
I was
Yeah.
going to say, I think it probably should be separate, because I don't want to put a time limit on it.
Yeah.
Like, if this does get involved, and all of a sudden we have a hard stop at 2 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd rather have the full.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hate to have a separate meeting date, but I think it's just in fairness,
Yeah,
because 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
7.
And
I
You
know.
want to get as many people throughout the.
Well, that's what I was kind of thinking, that maybe we should have a,
A separate
and
meeting
since
for
we
that.
know Mr. Corvo can be here on the 16th, maybe we should schedule that workshop for the 16th, and then we could schedule a different date for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the good thing with that being Zoom is you can record it. And if someone misses it, they can come in and watch it again.
Yep.
For that ability.
But if we are thinking it's gonna be hours and hours long, I think starting at 5 is still a good idea.
I agree. I agree. So is that a motion, Mrs. Bogart?
Yes, motion to schedule the date with KP Law for open meeting law forum for select board and all town officials for February 16, was that what you said? At 5 PM. We will meet here, other officials will meet via Zoom.
Sounds good. Thank you. Is there a second?
Is 5 o'clock too early?
I think it's all Zoom, I believe.
It's all.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we
It's
would,
all Zoom.
okay, we would,
All Zoom.
All
okay.
be Zoom,
Oh, that's right,
yes.
because we're not
Right.
doing it before our meeting. It's in place. Okay. Take that part of the motion out.
I'll second that.
So, Madam Chair, would we not
Mr.
be having a
Townsend.
select board meeting that evening?
I think that was what Mr. Hoffman was talking about, and I was thinking, I agree, I'd hate to rush either.
No, I agree, I just wanted to
Yeah,
adjust my
yeah.
calendar, that's all.
So,
I guess my question is, you think Mr. Corbo would be available another day that week? So we can keep our Tuesday schedule?
Like, I can certainly check. I only checked on for the 16th because I know that the board would at least be together. But again, if it's a Zoom meeting, it could be any time, but
And my other second question is, do you think 5 o'clock is too early? If we're all going to be Zoom, where there's really no need to start it at 5, we can maybe start it at 6. Have
Yeah.
a 6 to 8 type. I'm just throwing
Well,
out.
I just know personally, I don't know, a 7 to 10 Zoom meeting is
Yeah.
yeah,
not appealing.
I know.
6 to 8 or 6 to
So,
8.
boy, I hope it wouldn't be 3 hours. But again, it depends on the participation, obviously.
right. So I wouldn't want to start any later than 6. I don't have a problem with 5.
Okay,
but
do you want to
later-
amend your motion then for, at the Zoom meeting on the open meeting law workshop for Tuesday, the 16th, starting at 6 PM?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And who seconded that?
You said.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
So we won't have our select board.
Right, and we'll get to that, because that's next. Sorry. Yep. So no select board meeting on the 16th. Can we have a vote here, please, on the motion and second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Now, on the agenda, it says next meeting of this board on February 16th. So we'll have to decide when to have that meeting. Is everyone free the following Tuesday, the 23rd?
You could see how
Can we,
the obligations add up. It may be that,
I'm sorry?
I mean, you might want to see what starts adding up for the agenda or non-agenda. There is some business that isn't, doesn't have to be within a certain time frame. Some things that can wait.
So maybe we could wait till our first meeting in March? Is that what you're
Just
suggesting?
a suggestion, if
Okay.
you play it by ear.
Mr. Hoffman?
One thing, I'm just looking at the calendar, that's February vacation week.
Okay, yeah, no, we don't want to do that.
So even for this
Oh.
open meeting law, February 16th is during February vacation. I think that'll be a bad time. I mean, I don't know how many people are going away in this type of thing, but again, I just want to throw it out there that it is February vacation, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many people will be going away, but they may be wanting to be home with their kids. Yeah.
I just noticed the date when I put it on my calendar, that's all.
All right. Anyone want to change the date? I have a suggestion, so we can move on here. Maybe Mr. LaFawn can ask Greg Corbeau for other dates and get that to us in an email. Is that something that
Works for me.
people can write back to him with their availability? Is that satisfactory to everyone?
Yeah, I withdraw my motion to do what Sarah said.
Okay. Very good. So our next select board meeting will be on February 16th, 2021.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, I'm sorry, I missed that. Our next meeting
Our next select board meeting will be February 16th,
on the
2021.
15th,
February 16th,
16th.
two
Okay,
weeks from today.
And our open meeting law will be at another date?
Correct. Mr. LaFawn is going to get dates from Greg Corbeau when he is available, and he will get those dates to us, and we will respond to him only.
Well, I was thinking that possibly we could do a day meeting for a morning meeting for that week.
Well, let's wait and hear from Mr. Corbeau, Mr. Belvin, because I think we've kind of beaten this up enough here, and we don't know his availability, so, but thank you. Select Board community announcements. Does anyone have anything? Nope, okay. Mrs. Bogart, looks like you're the only one with Select Board notes this evening.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've talked about the Council on Aging, so I would love to know kind of the status of things. I don't know what's going on with the coffee hour and stuff, what's still going on, what has ceased. Maybe think of something that maybe we or the town or something can or should more be done, being creative. So I just love an update on where the COA stands.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, our final order of business here is executive session in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21-6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiated position of the town, and not to return to open session. This will be a roll call vote. Mr. Townsend?
Mark Townsend says aye.
Mr. Hoffman?
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Mrs. Bogart?
Jim Bogart says aye.
Mr. Belbin?
Robert Belbin says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.